Welcome back to the AJ Anything podcast. This is a podcast in which I, myself, AJ, will be talking about anything. So, here's the podcast. All right, so today we're talking about country on the AJ Anything podcast, where country came from and what country is and kind of how country has, so sadly evolved. It started, a long time ago in the 20s, so I'll go through how country sounded when it was founded. Rhymes. That was pretty cool. I didn't plan that. It started in the 20s and it was real nice, and then it moved to the 40s. It changed and evolved, and then it changed again into the 80s and through the 90s, and then changed again into 2000s country, and once more for the worst, where we're at today in country, around 2015 era. It changed one final time to bring us to today where it is now, and it's so sad. But I'm going to talk about the good stuff too, the foundations of country music, because this is the AJ Anything podcast, and we're talking about country music today. All right, so before country was starting to be a thing, or even was a thing at all, the genres of music that were out in the Americas that were just booming were the blues, jazz, and gospel music. And those are the genres of music that were leading the show right around the time country sparked into existence. Okay, and that was around the 1910, 1920s area there. The first recording was in 1922 of a country music. Well, not really recording, but radio broadcast. They didn't have to record back then. They just did it live over the radio, which is crazy. I couldn't do that, that's for sure. But, like I said, somewhere in the 1920s, somewhere in the sticks, down in the South, the original country was called hillbilly music, and that's kind of a dumb name. So they renamed it bluegrass later on. And the bluegrass style of country music, started with a fiddle and acoustic guitar and a banjo. And they didn't really have much for percussions or drums or anything. They kind of just kept the beat with their hands or feet, because the rhythm in the fiddle and the banjo and the guitar just carried it away. There was no need for percussion. There was so much happening on those other instruments. There really wasn't much need for percussion. They just needed to keep a beat on their hands and feet. Another rhyme. Look at that. I'm on a roll today. All right. Well, and some of those artists that are notable artists for this start of country, the Sons of Pioneers, the Skillet Lickers, and the Carter Family. Those are all kind of notable artists for this genre of bluegrass style of music, the original country. And then it kind of flows into the 40s now, and it's that new sound. They need a new sound for the next generation, a sound to appeal to the the next generation, and that sound I like to call true country. And that's got the steel guitar, that's got a piano, and that's got a little bit more percussion than hands and feet. That's got a kick and a snare, pretty good there. Maybe a little tambourine or a shaker device of some sort to keep it going. Now that stuff is the good stuff. Steel guitar. If your country don't have steel guitar, I don't know how you could consider it country. Anyway, some notable artists from that genre, that time period of country music would be like Hank Williams and George Jones and Hank Snow. You know it? So there's that genre of country. Now, then in the 80s and through the 90s, like I said before, is the next gap that needed to be filled by country music, and of course it was changed again. Country music changed again in the 90s, and that's what I call 90s country, because it was mainly in the 90s when they really perfected the art of what they were trying to sound like. Anywho, the instruments used, in this style of country were swelling electric guitars. They really liked to swell a lot in this genre of music. Electric guitars, and of course they still had the steel guitar. And a steel guitar is a type of electric guitar, I suppose. But anyway, they had the electric bass, and they had more of a rock beat in their drums, just a little bit more of a rock beat. They had hi-hats and kick snare and a little bit of cymbals too, with their swells on the acoustic. Of course, you got to have a little bit of a ride cymbal roll on, stuff like that. Some notable artists for this genre of music would be George Strait, Alabama, and Hank Williams Jr. All just wonderful artists, created great music. And then, of course, after the 90s, we flew into the 2000s, where country took yet again another turn in its path. The artist took a deeper dive into how country and rock could form, and they were creating a lot of rock sounds, but turning it into country with their voices, But so the main parts that changed here are a lot more electric and big sounding, strong-footed electric guitars. And they even put a little bit of some synth stuff in there. It's not really heard very well, but I think they were trying to hide it because they didn't know what they were doing. It kind of just came out, They were kind of testing the waters with that. And then the drums are even more rockier than before, even more, wild stuff going on with the snare and the hi-hat and the bass drum. And then, finally, a turn for the worst. Around 2015, artists start making a turn nobody could have seen coming. As in the 90s and the 2000s, country was becoming more rockish. And then around 2015, it went pop. Country became less rockish and more popish with their synthesized basses and their snap tracks and fake drums with just horrible amounts of hi-hat, and yep, there it went. Country right down the drain. But here's the deal. I bet if you were in the 20s and you grew up with your bluegrass, you probably wouldn't have liked the guys making music in the 40s when they came along and made their honky-tonk sounding jams with their steel guitars and stuff like that, you know? Maybe this happens every time. Country just seems to keep on changing and nobody can stop it. I don't know why it keeps on changing. Who's making it change? We really can't tell. I guess it's what the people want to hear, but goodness gracious. Am I the only one that thinks this? You have to let me know, because I think this is ridiculous, how country keeps on changing. Now, I love where it ended up in the 2000s and the 90s and the 40s. You know, I'm not a particular fan of the bluegrass. I enjoy listening to bluegrass every now and then, but man, turn on some Hank Williams or Hank Williams Jr. in the 90s, or goodness gracious, Rodney Atkins in the 2000s. I love all them. That's some good sounding stuff, but now you got Florida Georgia Line. They're not making country music anymore now. It's just pop. They even feature pop artists and call it country music. That's like, well, I don't really know what that's like. I don't really have a good example, but that's like not good stuff going on. But it's happening. Should country music be changing the way that it is now? Up until this point, it was only getting rockier. It was only getting funner, more honky-tonk like, better for the listener. And now they're just giving in to the pop vibes. Is this what country is now? Obviously, it is. And I'm kind of disappointed. But hopefully, again, in like 15 years or so, I'll be able to enjoy country again in a better way. You know, I hope it stops going down this pop road that it is on, and it goes backwards a little bit. But as far as we've seen in country history, it doesn't go back. It only evolves. So that's kind of disappointing, but hey, who knows? Maybe in 15 years it'll be a better style of country. Maybe they just have to get through this pop stage to really bring on the country vibes. Anyway, this is the AJ Anything podcast. Thanks for listening in on however you listen in, whether it be Apple Podcasts or YouTube or SoundCloud or wherever else I am. Spreaker is what I use to get it out there. Anyway, however you hear me, hope you enjoyed my little informational / rant topic on country music. And have a wonderful rest of your day. Or evening or morning. I really don't know when you're listening. Anyway, have a good rest of it.